My name is Howard Caygill, and my role is Professor of Philosophy and Art Theory. IDSVA is dedicated to doctoral study with an emphasis on study, and this I think makes it very different from other places. And it's also about a community of study with staff and students working together to advance the thought of philosophy and the visual arts. A lot of the teaching is virtual, and kind of the community is the community of a screen, but it's complemented by the kind of intense residencies, which seem to compensate and lead to an even stronger sense of community than the universities that I've been used to, which are have in-person contact and are in fact quite impersonal in many respects. And then the experience of kind of working in kind of virtually then leads to something that's even kind of more intense and magical when they eventually work together in person. So for me, it's IDSVA is about an entirely new mode of study, a new mode of working together to understand and to change the world. I think we can see it already happening in the in some of the extraordinary outcomes of artists who now have a rigorous philosophical training, thinking about kind of what they're doing, but also kind of practicing what they think. I think that could have extraordinary consequences in the future, but I don't think we can underestimate kind of what it means to change kind of patterns of thinking, to break with, which is the ambition of IDSVA, to break with a metaphysical way of thinking that's lasted for 2,500 years, and to embark on a new way of understanding the world. I think I'm the Sarge of IDSVA. That everybody arrives, in their first year, and they meet me, and then after a sort of gentle introduction, we have a term in which everybody has to get fit, and this is something that then I continue doing for the 3 years. I mean, our second term is celebrated for being, the most kind of challenging and demanding kind of term, and that's how I like it. So I think that's my role, is to get everybody up to speed, kind of philosophically. A lot of our students don't come from philosophical backgrounds. I mean, many of them have had interest in philosophical texts, or reading Sartre or Zen, or but apart from a couple that I've known, most don't have a rigorous philosophical training. And so one of the things I have to do, I think, is to teach these students philosophy in a way that will allow them to hold their heads high when they go into philosophical forums and give philosophical papers. I have immense respect for our students that arrive every year. I mean, doctoral study is the most extraordinary, challenging thing. It is meant to be transformative. If you enter doctoral study, you're not expecting to come out the same person that you were than you came in. So I admire you for opening yourself to this change, and I even more admire the way that then that happens, and the way that there is mutual kind of solidarity among the students in recognizing each other's difficulties and helping each other go through those difficulties. I mean, some of the philosophical work we have to do is very technical and very, very intense, and nobody's the same after they've done that. I very much enjoy meeting extraordinary people and seeing these already extraordinary people develop and become kind of stronger and more free, which is, I think, always a very astonishing thing to watch as students work through IDSVA. I very much enjoy the meetings like commencement or residencies, because I normally encounter the students in their first 3 years, and sometimes I'm then left a bit bemused about, well, whatever happened to Hannah? Sort of when you leave my my territory in IDSVA. So it's very beautiful coming to these events and seeing kind of students with whom I've had with whom I've pushed the years before, actually arriving to to receive their doctorates, and to enjoy their success, and knowing that this did not come easily, for them, nor for their families, nor for their friends, not for anybody. Well, I've always worked on the history of philosophy, so that's something I continue doing, and with great pleasure and continued fascination. But most of the work I do these days is on kind of how to think the planet, or how to think planetarily, and I approach it in a way that that combines philosophy, science, and art. So I'm interested, especially in the ways in which, for example, climate change is registered scientifically. The roots of that scientific interest in kind of the changes in the planetary kind of behavior, roots which are often quite disturbing. They come out of the Cold War and kind of military kind of research. And I'm also interested then in the ways in which artists, using art to develop another way of knowing the planet and another way of acting in order to address our current crises. So my current work may be considered to be an extension of Greta Thunberg's Listen to the Science. How do we listen to the artists? And there is some amazing work being done which is outside of the normal art market circuits. That is producing extraordinary work, and usually not in the global north. All of the faculty have a ambient experience. It's taken for granted in the history of philosophy. So Sylvia, Alina, Diane, George, we can all converse at the level of the history of philosophy, and that's a 2,500 year tradition. That's taken for granted. And then there are divergent interests in 20th century thought, which are represented by the faculty. Kind of George has enthusiasm for, particularly for Heidegger, and a lot of respect for Heidegger's thought. Sylvia, Deleuze and Guattari. Diane's got the new ontologies. Alina, so Derrida, and myself probably the kind of the more historical, cultural historical kind of aspects of philosophy. But they're all very well, they're a very well curated set of teachers whose interests are close enough to ensure that there's a conversation going on all the time, and it's an extraordinary supportive and pacific conversation. In fact, I've never known a faculty that's so at peace with itself in any of the universities I've ever taught in. There's never any strife or argument or vanity, and I think that's because everybody has their place and it all works together. So I don't think any of us agree with each other or any of the other faculty wholeheartedly, but everybody understands that we're working together for the for the same objectives of the artist-philosopher, and a space for radical study.